partial mobilization in Russia. So President Putin has announced a mobilization of up to 300,000 troops. There are whispers that actually the number is much higher because there's a section in the order which is classified, blotched out. I'll play you the video, though, of him announcing the mobilization, and then we'll get into it, because this is a very, very serious topic with huge ramifications for a lot of young men, both in Ukraine and Russia.
Уважаемые друзья, сегодня наши вооруженные силы, как уже говорил, действуют на линии боевого соприкосновения, которая превышает 1000 километров. Противостоят не только неонацистским формированиям, а фактически всей военной машине коллективного Запада. В этой ситуации считаю необходимым принять следующее решение. Оно в полной мере адекватно угрозам, с которыми мы сталкиваемся. А именно, для защиты нашей Родины, ее суверенитета и территориальной целостности, для обеспечения безопасности нашего народа и людей на освобожденных территориях, считаю необходимым поддержать предложение Министерства обороны и Генерального штаба о проведении в Российской Федерации частичной мобилизации. Повторю, речь идет именно о частичной мобилизации. То есть призыву на военную службу будут подлежать только граждане, которые в настоящий момент состоят в запасе. И прежде всего те, кто проходил службу в рядах вооруженных сил, имеет определенные военно-учетные специальности и соответствующий опыт. Призванные на военную службу перед отправкой в части в обязательном порядке будут проходить дополнительную военную подготовку с учетом опыта специальной военной операции. Указ о частичной мобилизации подписан.
As he said, this is most notably of concern for people who've already served in the Russian army, who have experience, who are specialized. At the same time, however, I've seen many reports of students being called up to serve, being given draft notices, of people who had medical exemptions before, but now apparently those don't count because they've been drafted. And a lot of people are upset about this. A lot of people have gone out and started protesting. Here, I'll just show you a couple of videos. Okay, this is from Moscow. Yeah, so this girl, she's in a wheelchair, and my understanding of what's written on the sign, there's a higher quality video of this, but she basically said, "Don't end up like me." So she's basically saying, don't go, don't fight. You might lose a leg. You'll end up in a wheelchair like me. That's her message, basically. So the numbers vary. I've seen it between 1,000 and 2,000 people that have been arrested for protesting against the draft. And again, the number varies from source to source. Yeah, you can see here similar scenes to the start of the war when people were protesting against the war. It's understandable, right? It's understandable. I don't think anyone wants to go to war. But let me show you some more of these videos. These are the men that are being shipped off and saying goodbyes. So various videos of people that have been drafted just before they get on the buses, saying goodbye to their families and so on. There's one where they were drinking as well, which is unsurprising.
Отец, мне давай. Давайте оператору. Оператору.
Well, you get the idea, right? In Russian device, come on, let's go, you know? A lot of men are fleeing the country. If you want to go book a ticket from Russia, to Turkey, for example, I've seen reports that it's in the thousands of euros because everyone wants one. The prices have shot right up. So that's already a financial issue. The other issue is that if you get a draft notice and you don't show up, you can go to prison. I think Putin updated the decree. It's like 10 years now. A lot of men are in queues going into Georgia. Like Georgia, if you're Russian, you don't need a visa to go into Georgia. So you have extremely long queues of buses, cars, even people on bicycles trying to get across into countries like Georgia, Kazakhstan, into Finland, whether they need a visa or they don't, just trying to flee. I personally know someone who was in the Russian army a long time ago, and when I saw this order, I immediately thought, shit, he's probably going to have to go serve, because Putin said they're specifically looking for people with former experience. He told me about 5 of his friends have already been drafted, and he's bolted out of Russia because he is against the war and he does not want to serve. I've seen some really crude remarks also, like people saying oh, the Russians deserve it because when the war started, they didn't protest. They're only protesting now because it concerns them and they might have to go fight the war. But that's a really stupid way to look at things. I mean, people could, if you accept the notion that, okay, Putin's a dictator and going out and protesting will land you in jail, then obviously you're going to have people that are afraid to protest. Does that mean that they're in support of the war? Like, I don't understand this mentality. They blame Russians for everything while saying that they also don't have a choice. Anyway, this mobilization is obviously a response to the counteroffensive in Kharkiv, right? You guys remember, I'll pull up the map. The Russians lost a significant chunk of territory, and I talked about this in detail with Scott Ritter. And again, there are various reasons for that. Here, these are the gains that they made. I mean, you can just see in a matter of 4 days what happened from 6th of September to 10th of September. This whole area in purple was regained by Ukraine in a matter of days. And when we talked about this with Scott, the notion was that the Ukrainians had mounted such a convincing, counteroffensive in Kherson that the Russians ended up sending all the troops there. Again, I don't know if these are accurate, but you have people saying that a bunch of the units that are turning up are completely ineffective. I think that's more propaganda than truth. I'm not saying it's completely false, because when you mobilize 300,000 people, obviously not every single one of them is going to be fit for duty. But I think it's more like discouraging the Russians and so on. I want to go back to the speech where Putin said that they're doing this to protect the homeland, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, and that they're facing the collective West. I agree. Here's the quote. He says, in fact, the entire military machine of the collective West. He's right. That is what is happening. When you pump 50 billion is a goddamn understatement, man. When you pump all of these weapons from Germany, from the UK, from Poland, from the Americans, not to mention the Lend-Lease, which is its own beast. You have all this military might of NATO, crammed into Ukraine. Ukraine probably has more NATO weapons than actual NATO members. Ukraine is honestly more of a NATO member than actual NATO members. I would definitely agree that they're facing the entire military machine of the West. Absolutely, there's no question about it. On top of that, it's not just the military machine, it's economic warfare as well, right? They're trying to put a G7 price cap on Russian oil sales, gas as well. They're trying to slash revenue to Russia. They've sanctioned Russia more than any other country. So it's not just military, it's economic as well. Like I always tell you, these things go hand in hand. So he's definitely right there. Whether you agree, you don't agree with what Russia's doing is not the point here. The point is that you have a situation where, yes, Russia is facing the full brunt of the Western military machine. And so the reason he's declaring a partial mobilization, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of people, is that he doesn't want to upset and cause the support that he has from Russians right now, which is unwavering. 300,000, the Russians might accept this, right? In the end. But if you say everybody is to go to war, it's a full mobilization instead of a partial one, I think he would lose a good chunk of popular support. You understand what I'm saying? And you have to keep in mind, even right now, when it's partial mobilization, this is the biggest war effort that Russia has undergone since World War II. I would just remind you, though, that despite the protests, which you've seen a lot in St. Petersburg, you've seen a lot in Moscow, he still has popular support in Russia, which in his position right now, waging a war, using the best men that you have, using Russia's young men, you can't afford to lose that. You can't afford to lose the popular support at home. Once that's gone, it's game over. That is the biggest blow that could possibly be dealt, more than anything on the battlefield. Now, people are saying that the true number is 1 million, that it's not 300,000, it's up to 1 million men. I don't know. I think it's irrelevant at this point. Whether it's 300,000 or 999,000, the point still stands. This is the biggest war effort that Russia has undergone since World War II. It is very painful for a lot of families, and it's completely normal that you have men trying to flee, because they know that it's not just about being put into service; it's being sent to the front line. You'll have other people. You have people on the other side to say, "Well, those people are cowards and they're deserters and so on." Look, man, I'm not condoning or agreeing with either one, but I'm just reporting to you what the reality is. You have people fleeing. They're worried. They're scared, and they've been, they don't see any other choice. Really huge developments. The Iranian drones, the mobilization. We'll see what happens. But to me, this looks very bad, because this means the war is not ending. We're in September now. This has been going on since February. At the end of the day, someone is going to have to sit down and come up with a diplomatic solution. This can't go on forever. I haven't even gotten into the economic dimension of it yet. I've done a million videos on it, but the strain that it's putting on Europe and the cost being leveled on Europe's economy is really unprecedented.